Would you care to forecast when work might start on the dockyard, on the graving dock?
Well, it will take a year to prepare the documents for the calling of tenders.
A year from when? From the federal government saying okay?
From the moment we know we can go ahead with it, it will take 1 year to prepare the documents for the calling of tenders. And we're in a position now to go ahead with the plans right at this very moment.
Have you sufficient assurance from the federal government that you will get the money?
No, we haven't had assurance at all. We've been told that if we have a floating dock that they will provide the usual shipbuilding subsidy. We want the same, if not better, so far as the graving dock is concerned. And we're pressing the Commonwealth Government for a very quick answer on this.
Is a graving dock such an uneconomic proposition that the state wouldn't go ahead without the government subsidy?
Well, as a matter of fact, it's very hard to talk about the economics of a dock itself because you can't separate it from ship repair and shipbuilding. But on straight economics, it is not a goer. But on the other hand, you can't very well have a properly functioning dockyard without it.
Understandably. The people of Newcastle are a little concerned that unless something happens soon, we won't have either, because the floating dock is obviously on its last legs.
It's near the end of its useful life, there's no question about that, and I'm just as concerned as the people of Newcastle to get a quick answer from the Commonwealth so we can go ahead.
But you're not yet in a position to say when that'll be?
That's so.
Mr Dennison, you were judged overseas. How does Australian bread compare with the bread you've seen in other countries?
Compares fairly favourably. I would say probably the bread in the United Kingdom may have a slight edge on Australian bread, mainly because of their graded wheats, which gives them a standard quality of flour all the time, year in, year out. Plus they work 24 hours a day there, 3 shifts per day, and the bread is cooled naturally where we force cool it a little bit, but wouldn't have a lot on the quality all the same.
And the biggest problem with Australian bread is the fact that we don't have graded wheat.
Well, I'd say so, yes. If we had graded wheats, well, we would have a standard quality. The baker would know week by week just what he was working with, where today he has to make adjustments week by week to suit his flour.
What's the grand champion of the show here at Maitland like?
Well, this grand champion, this is the champion of the show. It's quite an attractive loaf, has won it mainly for its inside of the loaf of bread, which is its eating qualities, has quite an even texture, quite a good crumb colour. Its flavour is very outstanding, really.
I notice it's not a sandwich loaf or a sliced loaf.
No, well, a sandwich loaf made out of the same piece of dough won't give you quite the aroma or flavour that this type of bread will give. Not that there's anything adverse about it, as long as the dough is fermented well. It's on the stage of fermentation where you get your flavour and your quality of bread. It's whether it's fermented correctly or not.
And the open top, does this help at all?
The open top, yes, this improves it because you get a better caramelisation of your sugars by being open to the heat. And through this caramelisation of sugars it imparts a nicer flavour, naturally, because the heat gets round the loaf of bread, it forms up a crust inside, where the other is a crust formed inside a tin, which is more moist through steam and this type of thing.
Many Australians would argue that the bread from the old bakehouse on the corner cooked with wooden fire is better than an electric oven mass-produced loaf.
No, this is not true. Bread today, I would say, is better than ever it was in a general standard. Now, I'm not saying that we don't have some rubbish. We do. Unfortunately, we do get a bit of this. But men are not robots, and of course we have carpenters and bakers and bakers. But the general standard of bread, hygienically, machine-wise, the control-wise, the knowledge we have, you might recall that some 20, 21 years ago the bakers supported a research institute on bread. And I would say it's one of the best research institutes in the world. And these bakers pay into this. And they support this. And through this we've noticed in the last 20, 21 years that and other many things, improvement in standard of raw materials, flour and everything else, I would say, no, our bread is improved.
And can local bakers do more to improve? You've got a champion here and others that are not nearly so good.
Yes, well, this is the application of one tradesman as against another. I would say you'll probably give 10 men the same ingredients, they can go away and make a loaf of bread, and you get probably 10 different results. I think this is understandable. You might give an engineer a piece of steel and he'll do different, and one will do better than the other will do. But the baker has a harder job to do because he's working with elements that you're using a live organism, which is yeast. And you've got to learn to control this to get your fermentation right. When you get variance of flours, this is different. Now, one baker may be using one type of flour that has a protein strength of such a certain figure and a maltose figure of a certain another figure. The other baker up the road might have another brand of flour that is showing less protein or more protein and a different maltose figure. Now, both of those doughs are going to be handled differently. Now, he's got to have the knowledge on this to get the results. Now, you can get those results, but you must study this to get the knowledge. In this particular loaf, that loaf, I would say, was fermented very, very nearly perfectly. You wouldn't see a better fermented loaf than anywhere part of the world, with all the criticism adverse criticism we may get. In the paper recently, in the Riverina district, one of our politicians criticised our bread and said, Australia has the worst and the dearest bread in the world. Well, I lay hold, and I hope this politician hears this because I wanted to debate this with him. We haven't the dearest bread in the world, and we haven't the worst bread in the world. It ranks very favourably. I've seen bread in Germany and most of these countries. Some parts of Germany, glorious bread. Some of it, so we get here in some of our town, mediocre bread. I've seen bread all over the United Kingdom, some glorious bread. But they get their bad runs too. And I think we've got something. If we once had graded wheats in this country, we'd rank with anybody, anywhere in the world.
The people of Rowing are very much concerned about the power station being placed around this area. Most of the people in Rowing are elderly people and have been sitting on their blocks of land hoping that someday they will be of value to pass on to their children and their grandchildren. But now they're going to be disturbed. Some of these old people are unable to get to anywhere in the district except by the the goodness of their neighbours. They have no other transport. There's no transport from Eraring except on a Friday when it goes to Toronto for shopping. So these elderly people, when they have to be disturbed and have to get out of their houses, they've got to go to other areas. But it'll cost them 8 shillings to go from their house to the Dora Creek station, and then again their rail fare to and from the station to whichever area that they require.
And this is looking for somewhere else to live if they have to move.
This is looking for somewhere else if they have to move. And at the present time, they cannot afford that money to be spent in such a manner. And another thing is that their health will not stand up to this stress and strain that has been brought about by this action of turning them from their houses.
The Commission hasn't been very informative.
The Commission hasn't given us any information whatsoever. We've had to drag out from the Commission through various persons and ways. The Commission, in my case, has never informed me that they wanted this block of land. But because I had a little contact in the city, I was able to find out that a station was to be built in Eraring way back in 1968. And yet I've never had a communication from the Commission to say that we would be included in that area.
If any new project is to be built in a settled area, the people there obviously must suffer. But these people want to know why. And they regard their fight as a battle for every landholder who in years to come was going to be required to give up his land in the name of progress. Eraring's Progress Associations believes that these people should have some rights. They should be shifted to a suitable area without cost to themselves.
I've been associated with the Executive Committee in trying to obtain for these people a proper valuation, and in relation to this we've started a campaign against the siting of the power station at Eraring, as it affects so many people. Money they offer cannot compensate the effect of the emotional strain these people are going under, waiting for a decision to be made by these people.
But how much money do the people want?
Well, they want to have sufficient capital to resite themselves outside the area without having to go into debt and borrow money. Now 60% of these are pensioners. There's not a chance in the world that they'll be able to borrow finance from some society.
The Electricity Commission has undertaken to give these people values unaffected by its plans for the power station. This is an argument which hasn't convinced Eraring Progress Association. They say, how can you pretend that such a publicly announced thing is not going to happen, and how can you have this announcement not affect the values offered?
We negotiated with the Electricity Commission to ascertain how much capital we would have available in the event of another property coming on the market. And after looking around the district, and we had to confine our activities to a certain area because, well, my husband has to work anyway, and we found that the spiralling costs of land outside the area were so high that, well, this $6,500 would buy probably just a small block of land.
So this was the original offer they made to you for this
This was
land?
the original offer.
So you rejected that?
Yes. And
What did the Commission do?
came up and negotiated again, and I managed to get another $1,000, which brought up the offer to $7,500.
But you've had a private valuation done.
Yes, this is the right of every individual.
How did that value compare?
I haven't got the, so far it is well in excess of the $7,500.
Will this new valuation buy you a very similar property?
Well, it's not going to buy me a mansion on the hill.
To any argument, there are two sides. It's a shame that the Electricity Commission's policy is such that it won't have one of its own officers give the Commission's viewpoint, but their public relations men are quite helpful by telephone. They assure me that the object of giving considerable advance warning which will probably total about 8 years by the time work starts here at Eraring, is to save the wrath of the local people in beginning a job very soon after the announcement is made. However, they've given 8 years warning here, and still they're in trouble. The local people aren't happy with the amount of information they're getting. The public relations men say that the Commission's plans are for its equipment, which is at present at Liddell Power Station, to finish that job, and from there go to Wallerawang. The extensions at Wallerawang won't be finished until about 1975. When Wallerawang is finished, the next power station job is Vales Point, where extensions are to be made. These are very much futuristic, and at this time they haven't decided what the capacity of Vales Point will be, or the size of the generators which will be added. When Vales Point is finished, the equipment will come to the site here at Eraring, but that probably won't be until 1977 or 78. So what's the problem here? Is it a simple case of poor public relations? I suggested to the Commission that it might be as well if they had some representatives come and talk to the people. After all, we're only human and we all do prefer a personal touch.
This week, 2 representatives of the Electricity Commission came to my house and had a conference with various members of the executive of the Eraring Progress Association.
So now you know all about the plans?
No, we do not know all about those plans. They were vague, and no answer was direct or definite that we received from them. One man was an engineer, and he gave us reasons why it was necessary to put the power station in Eraring. And although we suggested alternative sites, he turned round and said that economically they would not be suitable.
There are many problems to be considered. What happens to Lake Eraring itself? There is talk that the lake will have to be deepened to about 20 feet from its present average depth of around about 4 feet. Both points at the entrance to the lake will be cut off and the channel widened. The effect on marine life in the lake is pretty obvious. The cooling water will be discharged through the lagoon and into Pantaloon Bay, so that it will rapidly hit the huge body of water in Lake Macquarie, and the few degrees it will be warmed will soon be lost in the cooler water. But all this is very much in the future. What of the area now? The Commission says it isn't interested in resuming properties immediately, or even obtaining properties immediately. The plans are for the latter part of the 1970s. But these people in this area are getting too old. They don't want to be bothered about moving again in 5 years. All they want is a reasonable price for their properties so that they can get out now and live comfortably for the rest of their days.
Newcastle's Mall is now nearly 2 weeks old. It was born in controversy. That's been the subject of argument ever since it opened, with half the merchants of the street saying it's a good thing and the other half saying it's not such a good thing. The public's equally divided on whether it's in favour of the mall or otherwise. In spite of precedent elsewhere, Newcastle's Mall is still having a rough time of it. Now, to find out what the true situation is, Focus decided that it would make its own survey. Mrs. Waring, has the mall affected your business at all?
Yes, at the moment I say it has.
You're down quite a bit, are you?
Yes, it's down to this. If it goes down or anything in any way, well, it means to say some girls will have to be put off. Well, I don't want this because, you know, unemployment.
How long are you prepared to wait to find out if it gets better?
Oh, well, it better be a bit different now within 3 weeks.
Well, what's the problem? Are the customers just not coming, or...?
The customers will not come in. They have not the parking facilities here. The meters have all been taken off. The inadequate parking facilities, they will not go to the wall. And...
Well, do you think your shop's rather a specialised one in that you must have parking to pick up cakes and
You
things?
must have parking to pick up cakes. You must have parking for anywhere that you go, even across the road at Hustlers or these little cafes where people go to have meals. They pull on the opposite side of the road, or here on parking meters. They pull up here of a night time. Now the town is dead. I don't know how the others are going or anything like that. But with no customers, how can you let your business go? People walk from the bottom end of the town to buy our cakes, go up and get the bus and then go straight through. Also, they go on the other side of the road here, they pull up, have their cakes, they go home. This is going to chase people at the moment. A lot of talking about going to Katara, Charlestown and everywhere. Take the ferry off.
You having any difficulty getting your deliveries in though?
Yes, we are having difficulties for the simple reason if these boys can't get in between the 7 and 10 o'clock mark. I had a carrier here yesterday, had a park right up here in Bolton Street somewhere, and you know these like wheelbarrows are fair, iron ones, he had to put them on, bring them down here. But I will say it's courteous of the carriers, we have a lot of cooperation with them, and I'm quite pleased that we've got a lot of boys that are as nice as what they are, or otherwise I'd have to carry them myself.
Mr Maxell, who's the chairman of the Retail Traders Association and also a businessman in Hunter Street, has no reservations about the mall. He wants it to stay and hopes that it prosper, correct?
That's correct.
Is it prospering?
The results so far have been quite startling, Murray.
Is that as far as Els is concerned or as far as the street's concerned?
Well, we only have our own sales on which to judge, but to give you an example, on Monday our sales increase were 25.4 over last year, nearly 50% on Tuesday and 34% on Wednesday. I can attribute this increase to the mall and nothing else.
It's not the weather or anything else?
No, the increase is too startling for that.
Well, what happens then? You think that it's here to stay, or at the end of the 3 months, what's going to happen?
I feel confident that by that time the cash registers of all the stores in this area will prove the success of the mall.
Well, other people in the street are telling a different story.
Well, I'm sure that it's only a matter of time for them to be convinced of the success of it.
What about parking? A lot of the merchants in the street here say they'll die without parking.
I believe parking to be a serious problem. It is the one major problem that has yet to be overcome.
Well, how long can you afford to wait to overcome it, mate?
I think we're going to have to determine at the conclusion of the 3 months trial whether to continue with the mall permanently from then on, or whether to go back to normal traffic until we've been able to build new parking stations.
Well, would you change the pattern that you've got here now? Would you try for any specific improvements or any alterations in the mall system?
No, the mall as yet, it's very much undeveloped. Even this week we're putting in shrubs. Later on when the fountain goes into Market Street there'll be quite a big difference, a big change. I don't think people really know what to expect yet.
Well, this is normally a busy afternoon in Hunter Street, and yet looking down the mall there now it looks, well, quiet, almost dead.
There is a different atmosphere altogether in Hunter Street now. The bustle of traffic has been taken away and it's much more pleasant situation for people to shop. It's better and safer for mothers with children. There isn't the hustle and bustle that there was before. It's a more conducive atmosphere to pleasant and congenial shopping.
And as far as Els is concerned, it can stay that way?
More than happy with it. Very pleased indeed.
Right at one of Hunter Street's remaining bus stops is the Havana Espresso Coffee Bar. The proprietor there is not at all happy with the situation in the mall. Is it affecting your business, Mr. Barlas?
Yes, they affect my business because I lost most of my trade on the evenings and the weekends. The people, they can't park or they can't pass the street in here to see that we are open and we do business. So,
being right at the bus stop, is this helping at all?
On the bus stop, but on the night time that there's not many people around. And most of the business we lost after 3:30, which a lot of people used to come in town and find parking and do the shopping with the children. And also at the weekend, that Saturday afternoon, which the town is dead.
I gather you don't think that the mall deserves a very long trial?
Well, for us little people, I believe that well, the people, they can't find any parking close to the shops, they're going to come in town.
Why did you go along with it in the first place then?
Well, firstly, I'm not a member of the Golden Mile because I can't afford the fee they asked me for over $100 to be a member. But again, that one of the members of the Golden Mile, he asked me if I have objection. I say yes. He say that it won't cost you anything. He say that if you sign on this paper that we're going along for trial. So I did sign, but I found out that they're going to charge us now for the expenses they spent in here now.
So you're not too happy on quite a number of accounts.
Yeah.
Now, what do you think they should do? Abolish it or amend it?
Well, I think
Do you think it could work?
I don't think it can work, because I think that the people to come in town, you have to offer them parking. They have to park close to your business to do the shopping. If they can't find parking, they won't stop for 1 mile or 2 miles to come up to Golden Mile to shop.
Another of the Hunter Street stores with reservations about the success of the mall is Hustlers. Mr. Manser, why?
I can't see any good reason why there should be a mall, or why a mall should improve matters, our retailing efforts in Hunter Street. If it were going to be some obvious advantage, I'd be all for it. We've only had not quite 2 weeks yet to find out whether it's good or not. I don't think this is long enough. But
is there any appreciable difference in business over those 2 weeks?
No, I would say that business is just ordinary. Probably the weather has a lot to do with business at this time of the year, and if business is not booming, I would be more inclined to blame the weather than the mall. I don't think it's killing business, but I don't think it's improving it.
Well, how long are you prepared to wait to find out?
Not too long, if I have a choice, because I can't see anything that's going to happen to make it improve. I can't see any conditions brought on by the fact that there is a mall here that will improve business. No one has pointed anything out to me that is likely to happen by having the mall here. Why should it? Our business depends on customer flow, and I can't see that this mall is going to bring more people here. If anything, in the overall plan, I think eventually it could cause this city to shrivel up and die.
Understandably, you'd expect Mr. Griffiths of David Jones, who's the chairman of the promotion group which started the mall, to be most enthusiastic of all. Am I right, Mr. Griffiths?
I would say so, yes.
After 2 weeks, you'd say it's a going thing?
After 2 weeks, or in fact 10 days to be exact, it started last Monday week, we're quite pleased with the reception that we have received so far.
Now, you're speaking for David Jones or for the committee?
No, for the committee. As far as David Jones are concerned, we're quite happy. Our own figures tell their own story. As far as the committee is concerned, we're meeting tomorrow morning to discuss any of the complaints that are to be brought forward by other traders.
Well, what can you do about them? This is the point. People who claim they're losing turnover, what on earth can you do to help them?
Well, until we hear the actual complaints from the people concerned, there's nothing we can do. We hope to hear these tomorrow morning. But one of the complaints that I've heard personally is from the Transport Workers Union, and they have a problem in delivery of merchandise. They are asking that the mall hours be extended. But the reason they want them extended is that there are no merchants within their own stores to receive the merchandise before 8:30. If, on the other hand, we can convince the merchants to be there at 8 o'clock, then the problem is solved. So this is a question of discussion.
Well, you've done a lot of research on this overseas. You've seen others start up, or you've seen the reports of them. What's the chance for success in this one?
Why should it be a failure?
Well,
the greatest objection to change is custom. It's the old story when any legislation or reform comes in, it's very difficult to please everybody first up. But I think all concrete criticisms can only be made over a comparative period. And 2 weeks, I don't think, is a fair trial when the trial is to last for 3 months.
Well, the most concrete criticism so far is lack of parking. Now, how are you going to overcome this one?
Lack of parking is a problem. There's 29 metres been taken out of Hunter Street. But in our own case, I'd remind you that it's only 18 months ago since a new car park was built that's housing 250,000 cars. So prior to that 18 months, that 250,000 cars wasn't in this area. So everybody must be getting benefit from this. But I do believe that we've got to try and get more car park, and I think this is going to hasten it.
Well, there are merchants in the street talking of laying off staff, and there are others talking of losing half their turnover, and they say they can't wait for a new parking station. What can be done?
Well, I think one of the things that can be done is that Wharf Road can be opened up to metered parking. At the present time, it isn't. Now, that would immediately replace the 29 metres that have been lost in Hunter Street, plus a lot more.
You're
So
going to
this
need
would
more for
provide-
growth, though, aren't you?
Sure, but the council have already indicated, I think, that a car park is to be built in the eastern end in Scott Street. And when this does eventuate, if and when it does eventuate, surely this is going to help the situation. But if we had to wait until such time as council or any other authority built car parks, I think we're waiting too long. It's like many people are saying this will be a great thing when they get rid of the railway line.
Yeah.
But if we wait until the railway line is removed, how long will we wait?
Just the one final point, though. It's very noticeable that the bigger stores say they're doing well and the smaller stores say they're doing not so well. Now, why should this be?
I don't know, frankly, because my experience has been, not only in Newcastle but in Sydney and in other provincial centres, that when a big store does well, the little stores around it do well. And this is particularly so in special promotion periods. If this store has a major promotion period and draws a lot of people in, usually the smaller stores benefit from the extra traffic.
So that, as far as the merchants are concerned, is the story on the mall. The big stores seem to be in favour, the small stores perhaps not so enthusiastic. But here perhaps we have one of Newcastle's youngest entrepreneurs, a paper seller. Anybody, you if anybody, ought to know whether there are more people or not so many in Hunter Street since the mall began. What do you think?
Oh, I don't reckon there's as many.
Are you selling as many papers?
Oh, no.
You
A couple of weeks ago on a Saturday I made $20 and last week I made $10. Big difference.